This is part 4. So when I left off, I said, this is how we fall. Which I'm thinking this is probably going to be the title name for this thing. The truth of the matter is really quite simple. We all tend to turn a blind eye to things that don't work for us versus opening our eyes to the things that do. Trump doesn't work for me. So you don't like the fact that I don't like Trump. I get it. Biden doesn't work for me either, but I voted for Biden because Elizabeth Warren, Petey Pete, and Andrew Yang were no longer on the ticket. So I had to go with the next best choice because of the simple fact that there was no way in hell that I was going to follow a racist for another 4 years. Where everybody who thinks that I think that Trump is a racist doesn't think that he's a racist, and I get that. That's your personal opinion. You know why that's your personal opinion? Because personally, he hasn't had said 2 shits that affects you, and that goes for Mexicans who were born here, who don't think about the Mexicans that he mentioned when I point that video out, that he tells us all that Mexico is sending up some horrible ass people. He's sending up murderers and rapists, etc. in the wall. And Mexicans that are born here don't seem to give a shit that the kids were separated from their parents and the immigrants that were all decided, nope, you're not coming back or whatever. And then, let's say, when he talked about Chinese people and getting my Chinese friends in danger and my Asian friends in America in general in danger, but he hasn't reached your Asian yet, so you don't give a fuck. But, you know, you're like, okay, well, I'm still going to vote for him. Like, okay, that's cool and everything. But what happens when you meet a racist who does not know that you're Filipino and thinks that you're Chinese? Because, you know, Filipinos are a little bit darker. They're like me. But there are some dark Asians that are not Filipino that tan. Some Chinese people tan. They like tanning. They might hang around with a lot of white people, so they tan up. Some Polynesians that look like me in color. People might not know that you're not Chinese. They might not know that you're not Korean. They might not know anything about Asian culture other than all people who have slanted eyes are Chinese. Let's fuck them up. But, you know, if you're Asian and you're voting for this guy, hey, it's not my place to call you out on it, but you would probably consider the fact that he told a Chinese reporter to go ask China. And all the Chinese attacks that have been attacked by blacks and white people that are on the internet and on the news that are rarely covered, but covered, you know, because he hasn't reached your Chinese or your China or your Asian ethnicity yet. You're going to vote for this guy without thinking of the consequences of your fellow Asian people who have been attacked. Now, for me, like I said, everything that he said about Native Americans in the Central Park 5 has done me in for Trump, period. And if you don't like that, that's your prerogative. I can't change your mind. I can't make you believe shit. That's why I put the videos up, so that you can see where I got them from. So that you can see I got it from Fox. So that you can see I got it from NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, CNN, and a couple of other news places where they're all the same. But a lot of you Trump supporters can't hear it, can't see it, but he speaks it. And even other people say, well, his racist rhetoric. Not his racist ass language, his racist rhetoric. Okay, that's fine and dandy. He says a lot of racist shit, but y'all all tend to turn the blind eye because your pockets are getting fatter and fatter the longer he stays in office. But the fact that he can insult one race of Asian people and put them in danger, and the attacks on Chinese or Asians in general has gone up over the course of him being in office and saying the shit that he said about the Chinese flu or the Kung flu or the Chinese virus, and y'all don't seem to see that shit as racist. But that's because he hasn't reached your race yet, and you don't give a fuck. I'm not Chinese, but I have Chinese friends, really close Chinese friends that I have to worry about now, because they're like family to me. Now I have to worry if somebody that I know that's black is going to attack somebody that I know that's Chinese because they're ignorance and decided, okay, well, you're Chinese, I'm just going to fuck you up because you're Chinese. Not a choice. No. Then everything he's ever said about Native Americans has always thrown me for a loop. And then the Central Park 5, for the black people who don't remember him saying that they should be hung, that they should be lynched because they're 5 black guys that raped a white chick, which they didn't because DNA proved them. And they were lucky that they didn't get killed in prison over this shit because no one likes rapists and child molesters in prison. But y'all don't see that. And so, yeah, Now let's go on over to Biden real quick. So let me play devil's advocate again. If you missed the first 3 videos, I specifically said why I voted for Biden. There was no Elizabeth Warren. There was no Andrew Yang. There was no Pete. Alright? Those were my 3 choices. Hell or high water. Hillary would have been there. She would have been my number 1 choice. But there was Elizabeth Warren. And I was going for her. I was praying for her. And she even confronted Sanders. She didn't really say too much about Joe Biden. But she was definitely confronting Sanders. She was on his ass. So, I respect her for that. And, because she called him out doing the political debates. And I respect his adult actions of saying, let's not handle this here. Let's handle this somewhere else. Which was the smart thing to do on his behalf. But she was angry, and she wouldn't let it go. That's probably about the only strike that I can say about her. But is it really a strike? Because women are gone for so long without being heard, or being seen, or being treated as sex objects versus the brain within them, and what we don't really give the women credit for. I give them that credit. I was raised by a mom. My dad was around, but I only got to see him in the summertime. And I know the difference between equality. And my stepmom, for God's sake, she definitely opened my eyes to how good it would be to have a daughter versus having a son. And there's no difference between the 2 of them. You're going to love them both the same anyway. And, how you treat them is how they're going to treat you. Sadly, that's not the 1000% truth there, because I've been treated like shit most of my life from my mom. And I've done the most things for our siblings. My big sister and I have suffered because everybody else won't grow up and do their job. But this isn't about my personal life. This is about right and wrong. And what I consider morally right, you might not. Which I can't fault you for that. But I can question your moral compass. And the reason why I always go back to this moral compass is because this is how we fall. Straight up and down, this is how we fall. When you have no morals, when you're not willing to bend over and see the other side of this thing, yeah, a lot of y'all support Trump. A lot of you support Trump. A lot of people of color support Trump, which fucking shocked me, because the only racist thing that Joe Biden has said, and he has been called out on it many a times, that if you don't vote for me, you're not black. Alright. How many times have you heard a white person say that? I've heard it all of my life. I'm 47. I've heard white politicians say, if you don't vote for me, you're not black. Now, I will tell you one white politician that didn't say that, but I voted for him, and that was Al Gore. I lost because Al Gore didn't win. But I still lost. And I knew for a fact, one, Al Gore lost in Florida. And that was like a Bush-supported state. Alright? There was no way around it. Which is, again, how Donald Trump won Florida. But the thing is, what was the argument? For Al Gore, he was about climate change and becoming a tree hugger. Bush was about oil. Motherfuckers with money went with Bush. Also, Bush had an ace in the hole. His brother was like the governor or whatever the hell it was, the high guy in charge of the state. So it was a good chance that Bush was going to win. Al Gore needed Florida to win. He didn't. You ain't heard nothing from Al Gore outside of his environmental projects. So, after that, when it was time for Obama to come along, there was Obama and there was Hillary. And from where I stood, it wasn't that Obama was black that I wasn't going to vote for him. It was the fact that Hillary had been in the White House. She knows the game. So I would rather have someone who had experience in there than someone who was green. But sadly, I lost out. Hillary got the nominee, so I had to vote for fucking Obama when it came time. Because I was voting for Hillary the nominee, and then when it came time to actually vote, I had to vote for Obama because Hillary was no longer the nominee. And that kind of messed me up a little bit. And also, I had 2 jobs and lost a job at Obama getting in because of the recession or whatever, and bailing out cars and all that. And I was working for a car dealership, and they found a legal way to boot me because I didn't take shit from nobody. Now, on his second term, I voted for Obama because I wasn't going to vote for the other guy. I've never voted Republican. And the thing with that is, I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, this is cool. And then when Hillary ran again against Trump, I was voting for Hillary. You see the pattern here. Hillary's been in the game long enough to know how it works. Long enough to finally give the world a woman's aspect. So then I decided, when it came to the runners, when Elizabeth Warren put her name in there, after months of hearing this man call her Pocahontas, I was like, I'm voting for Elizabeth Warren. Especially after she proved that she had 1.116% of Native American DNA. Which still makes her part Native American. Not pure blood, but part Native American. And granted, not too long after that, a lot of the Native American nations wanted her blood because she used that to get through school, etc., etc. Which I found out, hey, I could have been doing that, but I was too damn dumb to realize that shit because who knew? Now, finally, we are going to fall if we don't get our shit together and stop fighting each other over Joe Biden, who stumbles over his words, the red-headed step troll in charge who is a blatant racist. They are going to do what they want to do when they get in that office. That's the one thing that you have to understand about politics. It's always a good plan when they're candidates. And then we all forget that you have to deal with the Senate and the House, who will either lay down and do what the president says, or they will fight tooth and nail to make sure that the president can't do what he says. Obamacare was living proof of that. No one wanted Obamacare when Obama was in office, but Obamacare was needed. I don't have Obamacare. I'm a veteran. I don't have any money. I can't afford health care. And I only get $281 a month from the military, which I've been living off of for a while because I can't get a real job. And I'm going to school. The military's supposed to be helping me pay for it. I'm still fighting them on that. But no, that was because when I was enlisted, the National Guard couldn't use a GI Bill. But I got into this program of vote rehab, and they were supposed to help me because the military fucked me up, which is how I had to get a hip replacement, because it's service connected. So, and they have to give me another one because it's also service connected. It's damaged from overcompensating for this hip being fucked up and me not knowing it before Benning dropped the ball. Now, the thing that it really pisses me off is that, our elected president, Biden, isn't getting the military or the intel that he needs. Our sitting president, Trump, who thinks that guys like me and girls who put these on every day so that guys like him and the rich can be called losers and suckers. And you guys are voting for this guy who's about as patriotic as a turd. I don't think it's right. But that's just my personal opinion. That's my personal bias. And I'll admit that it is biased. But Trump's done a lot of things to other races that has made me not like him. And those races that support him are the races that he has done things to that I'm like, what's wrong with y'all? And the answer is really simple. Thumbs here. Hands here. See no evil, hear no evil, no matter how much evil he spews. This is how we fall. You got radicals on his side and radicals on Biden's side. You got radicals in this Antifa and this Black Lives Matter. And no one's really addressing the real fucking issue on why we're all fighting. We're all fighting because y'all don't even know why you're fighting. Antifa, I don't know who they are. Black Lives Matter. A majority of Black Lives Matter movement people are not even black. And then you have Antifa, who I have no idea who they are. And you have the Proud Boys. And some of those guys are black. So basically, y'all all are fucked up. And while y'all doing this clusterfuck and fighting each other and dwindling away at our numbers, countries that have a beef with us are watching. And they're watching, and they're waiting. And they're waiting, because if America has another civil war, there'll be no Americans left to defend America when they move in and start taking us down. One by one by one, because of your stupidity. As a soldier, I can tell you how this works. A war of attrition is the best way to win a war. It's the only way to truly win a war, is to whittle it down. Kill them with bug bites. No. You get more flies with honey than you do with shit. Maybe. You might get more flies with shit than you do with honey. I really don't know, because flies can't tell us which one tastes better. But I can tell you this, from all the training that I've received in the military, it's a whole lot easier to attack a country that has no defenders, while everybody's fighting themselves because of their high moral compass, or their low moral compass, or their beliefs that it's okay to outwardly be racist versus it's not okay to not be racist. But as long as we're fighting each other, let's see who's after us. The news says that China's watching. The news says that North Korea. The news says that Russia. Those three power plays there are looking and waiting to see when we're going to implode. And once that happens, once America goes into second civil war, because that's what some of you want, they're going to move in. And this fear-mongering that I seem to be doing isn't fear-mongering. That shit's fact. You think this shit hasn't happened before? When we had a civil war, it was over slavery. Over shit that didn't even need to happen. But a lot of people aren't taught the truth about slavery. Because there were white slaves. There were Native American slaves. There were black slaves. There were probably more black slaves than white slaves and Native American slaves. But the fact of the matter is, there was slaves. Indentured servitude, that was slavery for white people. But I'm pretty sure they don't teach you that in school. Native Americans had slaves for whatever tribe they conquered, and they killed all the men. They indoctrinated the women and children into that tribe. And this is just a horrible reality in which we live. Even black people owned slaves. Just because you didn't read about it doesn't mean it didn't happen. You have to find out about it when you go to college, and they start giving you more truthful things. Stuff they're not allowed to teach you in the codex of grade school and middle school and high school. But this is how we fall. We fall when we stop taking care of other Americans and decide, it's okay, I'm a racist, I'm going to hate this black guy or this Asian person or this white person. It's okay that our leaders decide to take the families and separate the children and keep them in cages, and all the presidents are guilty for that shit. From Trump all the way back down to Clinton and whoever was before him that I couldn't vote for. Because when it came to immigrants, they weren't always treated nicely. Once the DACA thing happened, things got a little better. But truth be told, this is how we fall. By fighting each other. It's Kung Fu number 2. BC and you. Stop fighting each other. Start fighting together.